Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It is Wednesday. Let's talk about some alts. What could go wrong? And I want to start with legacy for a second. What I call legacy, TradFi, stocks, equities, just to compare and contrast a little bit, and to keep in mind throughout this chart scan, I've got like, 30 charts here. For me, it usually takes half a second to just look at a chart and see if it's something I'd want to touch soon, or even worth consider evaluating further, right? Here are just 6 on the legacy side where, as an example, these are things I would not want to touch. And you might think that's silly, but something like Meta that's up, 100%, 200%, 180%. Apple, Microsoft, I think that's an all-time high. Nvidia, mega all-time highs. For me, these are charts that I would much rather have bids lower. Is Apple going to go to 160? I don't know. Would I touch any of these at these highs? I wouldn't, personally. For me, the train is far gone, and you missed it, right? If the chart looks like this. And you can use, this is default doubled settings, but you can use cloud, use 5200 moving averages, use whatever time frame you want. I don't care. It doesn't really matter. But for me, anything that looks like this is a bit too far gone, and I would need to see some pullback. Whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know. These charts, on the other hand, right? I don't care what the companies are. Zoom, I don't think I could buy just on principle. It's a terrible, atrocious product. But these are the types of charts that, when I'm scanning for alts, in the current market conditions, in the current market environment, is the type of thing I want to see. I want to see extended anguish. I want to see, like Zoom is a perfect example, right? COVID stock went insane, and then it's just been down only for 2 years, right? Semi-bottoming, attempting potentially a cloud breakout on the 3-day, right? It retraced all the way back to its essentially original all-time lows on the chart, washed out everybody who was long or still in it from the COVID trade, and what have you. That's the type of stuff I want to see. Again, time frame doesn't really matter. I like higher time frames just to see everything. Hoods breaking out, coins breaking out, Square's crypto adjacent, potentially ready for a breakout. Now, Roblox, however you say it, I don't know why this exists as a stock, right? But I don't care. if I'm a technical trader, this is a great setup as a technical trader. PayPal, maybe the least bullish looking, but I love the absolute washout, right? Stairs up, elevator down. Maybe this is a falling wedge, as we'll see with Solana and a few other charts, AVAX, DOT. We have this triple bottom attempt that's sort of a diagonal. So these are the charts where the train is sitting at the station waiting for the passengers, okay? These are the charts I prefer to trade. I prefer to start accumulating. And, it's TFG, too far gone. All right, let's look at dominance just as a lens. Dominance pulled back quite a bit on the Ripple news. I think alts in general are, in some sense, difficult to trade because you're going to have extremely impactful regulatory news going forward. Regulatory regimes are extremely hostile in most countries globally to any altcoin. So you have to keep that in mind. And by the way, what's not hostile is legacy, right? So maybe you avoid the crypto adjacent stuff. Maybe you open a Robinhood account. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But this stuff is, to me, a lot less painful to trade than some of these alts that I'm about to show. But dominance still looks fine to me. It's down 4% or so from the highs, hovering around 50%. It might come all the way back to 48. I don't know. I still think Bitcoin is the play. These other coins don't have a BlackRock ETF coming. Sorry. At least not in the near term here. But the news that we are headed for, I'll get to the DeFi regulatory stuff in a second, is creating this binary option type market where we may randomly get some headline where so-and-so government is taking down Binance, or BlackRock ETF gets approved, or DeFi is all of a sudden KYCing, requiring to be compliant with US regulations, right? Whatever it is, that's going to move the market pretty substantially. So you definitely have to keep that in mind with sizing, allocation, leverage. Am I going to be max levered in this current environment? Massive positions on? I just think that's a recipe for tears, honestly. Looking at the total 3, the altcoin market cap minus stables and wrap Bitcoin, we're looking okay, right? On the alt side of things, semi-okay. In this, you can broadly see the kind of descending neckline of an inverted head and shoulders. The assumption is, for me, the soft assumption, this will eventually break up. It should at least attempt it. There's one chart I'm going to show later on where it had a great inverted head and shoulders, broke up, and got completely washed out. I think that's on curve. This should attempt to move, okay? That doesn't mean now's the time to start loading up on alts, because as you'll see with many of these, they are still in multi-month bearish channels. So for my style of trading, you might be different, but for me, those just aren't anything I want to touch or play with. This is, again, just a great guide for what should I be looking at, what should I be paying attention to, along with dominance. All right, let's start with ETH. ETH still has an ascending triangle. To me, it still looks great long term. Now, if you're 6 month, 12 month, whatever month person, these are the type of charts I like to see, right? This looks like Roblox, right? this looks like all sorts of stuff happening, all sorts of fundamental events. I could care less about the staking side of things, honestly. It's helpful. It hasn't helped much so far. So to me, the chart says it all. Descending volume profile, ascending triangle. I think this should be a 2K to 3K move easily when it breaks out. It's had a hell of a hard time actually breaking out. This is the 3-day cloud. Time frame's irrelevant, really. I mean, look at this on the 1.5 day cloud or whatever. It doesn't really matter. This thing just needs to hold above 2K. Then it might have a chance. ETH BTC leaning still more bearish than bullish in the cloud, neutral. There isn't a strong expectation for me that ETH outperforms Bitcoin. At this point, I would assume we would get a retest of this yearly pivot, which is around 0.55, basically the previous low. You know, it took 3AC exploding, it took Celsius exploding to get there. So I don't know what it's going to take to actually get there this go around. Maybe it's regulation. Maybe it's some stupid announcement. I don't know, right? But the market is ready for this thing to continue breaking down, in my opinion, whether that be slowly or quickly. That is much more likely than some move higher at this point in time. Now, if we start to get above 0.7, then we can talk about moves higher. But in the meantime, flatten down is where I'd expect this to go. Now, because this is an altcoin video, I want to talk about GMX a little bit. This isn't like a Ref Link shill or anything, but just in case you're wondering, where's this guy actually trading on leverage because he's an American, and unless he's using a VPN and doing that illegally, he can't do that legally. So in the moment, GMX is an option. You can see I have an order here. Sorry, a position with an order. If you don't know anything about GMX, it's a DEX. It's an exchange with leverage. If you do use this, don't go past 10x, okay? I wouldn't even go past 5x. Don't lose your shirt. It's not worth it. Don't be a hero. There are very limited things you can actually trade and use as collateral here. You have to bridge to Arbitrum. You know, it's a little bit of a job, but so far, it's actually been pretty slick. And they break down your position with fees. I don't know. It's cool. It's interesting. I know I'm super late to the game on this, and this thing's been around for a long time. But if you're the type of person who likes to play around with this stuff, it's worth checking out. I'll leave my link in the description of the video. Use it, don't use it. I don't care. But it's one place to mess around with leverage if you want. Don't use max. Don't go full bore. Okay, I've got like very minimal funds on this thing. There's smart contract risk. There's the book blowing up on you as far as some scam wick. Okay, just, you know, be careful. All right, let's get to some charts. I'm going to flip through these pretty quickly because, there's a lot of them, and most of them, it's going to be pretty obvious. Most of these are higher caps, but I'll get to some mid caps towards the end and middle here. Ripple, gotta be honest, looks okay. As I said with GME last week, and pretty much anything, Bcash, the table needs to be set in some fashion. It's much harder to have this type of move if you're just crushing lows, crushing lows, crushing lows. Yes, you can have a massive reversal, right? But when you're down for years on the XRP BTC case, it's much easier to move that thing the opposite direction, okay? When you're consolidating for months, it's much easier to actually break out. I don't think this thing goes to 515. I actually think it eventually trickles back down to 50 cents, but in the moment it looks decent. It even has a Ripple BTC breakout, but again, massive regulatory potential here. What happens when the SEC turns around and says we're going to appeal, which I assume they will? Is the market going to react to that in a positive manner or a negative manner? I don't know. Something to keep in mind, right? BNB, speaking of positive and negative, I would not touch this right now. I would not touch anything with TUSD. I would not touch anything on Tron. I would not touch anything related to Justin Sun at all, to CZ. I just wouldn't, right? There's a lot of chatter. Maybe it's real, maybe it's FUD. I don't know. I don't care. It's not worth the risk. These charts don't look great, and they're leaning bullish. Sorry, bearish. BNB could easily break down. I don't think it's going to 50, but it probably doesn't get happy below 220. And the BTC side is already bearish, has been bearish. You know, it's like, why? Why bother trading this with this potential overhang of some sort of news or regulation? Just not worth it for me. ADA, you know, again, does it look like a chart that wants to bottom? Eventually, maybe, but not right now. And look at that ADA BTC chart on the weekly, just straight bearish channel, and just highlighting that. Why, right? Why would you want to trade this? I don't know. Maybe you're a believer in Cardano, in old Chuck Hoskinson. Just a quick lesson on how to draw these. In the top drop down here, you can go to parallel channel. And if we just zoom in on Apple for a second, you can just draw. So you click once, make the channel, click again. So this is just for people who, you know, aren't used to using Trading View and Bob's your uncle. Then it'll be there, you know, all the time frames or whatever. Definitely a very useful tool on alts right now. Solana actually looks okay. Responded to that Ripple news because it's probably closer to a security than not. I don't make the rules, okay? That's just my opinion. Don't shoot me. I think ETH is also security too. Okay, don't shoot me. And that will impact the price both on positive and negative news regarding anything security-wise. Chart-wise, starting to look much better, right? It has a year-long bottoming process, diagonal, inverted head and shoulders. Maybe there's some Celsius stuff to be dumped here. Maybe there's some FTX stuff to be dumped here. I don't know. Worth just looking that up if you're going to size up on this thing. But if you're multi-month community enjoyer, you don't care. It's starting to look okay. On the BTC side of things, still looking angry. It doesn't look amazing. Doesn't look terrible. It's not crushing lows, right? So you have that going for you. I would much rather trade this when it eventually potentially gets above the cloud than risk anything here. I don't like Solana in general, but that's just me. Doge, same thing, right? Multi-month downtrend continues. 10 cents, maybe it's relevant. Again, realistically, sub 100 sats is where it needs to get back to for me to even begin to pretend to care about this thing. And much like the GME stuff, you know, that pre-2021 move had a year of nothing, a year of sideways consolidation on both the USD and BTC pairs. So do we have a year of sideways on Doge yet? No, we don't. Maybe you could argue that on the USD pair, but certainly not on the BTC pair. Still very much in a downward channel. Tron, again, on the chart, it looks okay. But you're kind of subject to potential news about anything Tron related, Justin Sun related, TUSD related. I don't know, right? I would just avoid it. It's just not for me. Tron BTC flat, really not exciting until it's above 330 sats. Manic USD looks unimpressive on the 3-day cloud, and on the weekly, this is probably the chart more important, worth watching, is this massive range, because if it breaks down, I think you're in for a bad time on the USD pair side of things. LTC, again, why? They have a halving coming up. Maybe this thing moves to 250. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Just not a chart for me. Not anything I really want to touch. This has also been in a downtrend for 5 years, 6 years. Just not something I want to deal with. DOT, much like Sol, has this diagonal potential triple bottom, double bottom. You know, I don't know. But ultimately, until it's above 7 on the cloud, this looks okay. You know, this kind of looks like those charts where it's down for a couple of years, go sideways for a year, and then maybe something happens. .BTC, on the other hand, Pitchfork, just looks like Zcash, right? It looks like this. Years and years and years and years and years of down. You could say you love the Zcash, you love privacy, you love ZK, whatever. I'm happy for you. But this is not something that's a buy and hold. Sorry, you're just losing against BTC. Have been really since inception on this thing. And it's something I point out frequently because it's just to remind people, like, look, you could be a community member for a very long time before you see any potential upside against Bitcoin. AVAX, much like DOT and Sol, maybe triple bottom, maybe inverted head and shoulders, maybe cloud breakout eventually above 20. I think this thing's probably worth paying attention to around 17. On the BTC pair, Again, just downward channel, maybe at 30K sats. It's worth a knife catch, but here, not for me. BCH, again, look at GME, look at Doge, right? Typically, as I say, the table is set before something crazy happens. Maybe this was my coffee in, maybe it was a triple bottom, I don't care. All I know is it was flat for a year and broke out. BCH, BTC, still really in a downtrend, arguably. I think this thing eventually just continues trickling lower. Personally, maybe you could argue falling wedge here, but I think it's actually going to Eiffel Tower all the way back into that previous range, personally. SHIB, I think it's a crime that this thing's listed anywhere. I wouldn't touch this. I don't even know what price this is. I just wouldn't touch this. Sorry. Same thing with the BTC pair. It probably has a scam pump here and then, now and then, but no, not for me. Sorry. Now we get on to some DeFi stuff, some exchanges. Uni, you know, it looks okay on the 3-day, right? It doesn't look bad. Maybe above 7 looks okay. On the USD side, on the BTC side, it did actually bounce at previous lows, but it also has this, you know, macro resistance. So I don't love it, but from a chart perspective, it looks like something watchable at the very least. I think the bigger concern is this, getting back to this regulation. If you get some regulatory thing where they want DEXs to KYC everybody, or they want people to be regulated, I think there's a path for that. I think the market will interpret that initially in an extremely negative manner, and you will have DEXs just geofencing the United States completely. So I don't think that's bullish. Now, I could be wrong about the geofencing stuff, but not bullish historically. You know, there's plenty of DEXs that geofence US users. Now to some like second and third tier DEXs. Sushi looks to me very different than Uni does on the USD pair. You know, maybe above $1.20 this thing is worth paying attention to, but right now I would just, for me, it's just not worth a buy. Sushi BTC crushing lows, no bull div yet. You know, you can draw your own sort of parabolic downtrend here. Doesn't quite look like something worth buying, in my opinion. 1 inch to me looks even worse than Sushi. Maybe this plays out like the Sol.AVAX charts with this triple bottom thing. I don't know. It almost looks like a expanding, broadening wedge or megaphone, whatever you want to think of that as. 55 cents would be where I'd start to pay attention to it. Other than that, you know, this thing's probably going to keep grinding lower, and against the BTC pair, BTC chart. Yeah, I think, you know my opinion there. DYDX. Okay, so this was the one that had the triple bottom. DYDX is a derivatives exchange. If you're not aware, had a great setup, just went nowhere, right? On the USD pair, on the BTC pair, really has done a bunch of nothing. Now this could be tokenomics related, issuance, emission related. I don't know. I don't know enough about DYDX, but from a chart perspective, I'd rather be long up here at 250 and lose money eventually than buy anything previously I just showed you, right? That's just me. Much better risk reward, in my opinion. Better setup. Was down for months and months and months. Went sideways for months and months and months. Then it made an attempt, right? BTC pair. I don't know what this is. It's ranging. I don't think there's anything here, honestly. Just in a massive range. Not something I'd pay attention to. GMX looks okay. The problem on the USD pair is that it could be setting up for a head and shoulders here. Triple top, 3 drives, whatever you want to think of this as. It did previously have a multi-month downtrend that it came out of, and the cloud confirmed that. Now, I did have to move around the timeframes a lot because there's not a ton of tradable data, right? Or charting data. So with some of these alts that are new, you do have to move around a bit. GMX BTC looks okay. Bottoming attempt, probably better trade, you know, as an edge to edge if that happens. But again, preceding it, it had months of down. If this breaks down, it's an ignore, right? I wouldn't touch this. But if it can break into the cloud, maybe that's a decent trade. And again, relative to regulations, if there's some regulations that eventually pass that aren't just crippling, you know, maybe DeFi broadly is a place to be. Here's Stellar. This should have been by the Ripple chart, but looks okay. Looks like BCH. You know, to me, the move already kind of happened. Last time I was really bullish on the BTC pair was way up here. Had a nice fake out and then broke down for years, right? Literally, it's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of pain, anguish, down, being a community member. Just not for me, not worth it. And do I think this time is different? No, not really. Link fell out of the pitchfork. You can't see it, it's off the screen, but it fell out of the pitchfork in mid 21 and has done a whole lot of nothing since then. Another reason why channels are worth paying attention to. If you break out of them or break below, break above, right? If we're bearish and we start breaking above channels, things change. If you're bullish and you break down below channels, things change. In its current state, maybe this is a megaphone, maybe it's just some range, I don't know. Anything between 7 and 9, 750 and 9, worth paying attention to. But as we sit here, I'm not too excited just yet. And on Link BTC, you could probably argue a channel, but this is also just a massive multi-year falling wedge here on Link BTC. So again, Link Marines, stay strong out there, buddy. Guys, women, men. Monero looks okay on the cloud, starting to peak above the 3-day cloud. Weekly cloud, though, on BTC pair, look, I love Monero, but it's just not the move on the trading side of things against Bitcoin. Aptos, talking about junk, right? Nothing I would want to hold long term, nothing fundamentally I would believe in, but it has had months of downtrend on the BTC pair. The table is set here, okay, right? We got the fork on the right, the knife on the left, whatever it is, the napkins are folded, the chargers on the plates. We're starting to invite people to the table here, okay? So that's something worth paying attention to, like GMX, if this thing breaks above the cloud or starts to, then maybe that's worth a trade. On the USD side, still technically in the channel, but again, maybe worth a trade above $8. 8 to 10, you're in, you're out. You don't become a community member, and you move on to the next trade. But this is really something. This Aptos BTC, Eiffel Tower, Zoom-like, right? Straight up, straight down. This is just like VCs dumping on you for months. That's probably what this is. It's just a guess. I don't actually know that, but starting to maybe look okay. This is one of those ETH killers, just like SWI. I thought I had a chart for that. Maybe I don't. I know I looked at it. Let me pull it up. All right, here's SWI. I know I did look at this because I said to myself, pop quiz for the listeners out there. What do you see in this chart? Is there a trade? What's the entry, exit, stop loss? What's the setup here? I pulled this up and it's one of those things you just instantly can see. So pop quiz for those who made it this far. Let me know in the comments. Doesn't look terrible, okay? But again, I know nothing about the tokenomics, the issuance, whether or not it has anything behind it. Probably doesn't. Keep that in mind. Some lending and borrowing stuff real quick that looks decently okay. Maker, Aave, Comp, Curve's more, DEX side of things. But anyway, Maker USD does have a decent case for an inverted head and shoulders, triple bottom, held for a year at this level after dumping for a long time. BTC pair doesn't look great. I will admit that, but I do like how the USD pair is setting up there. This is Aave. Again, dumped for a year, sideways for a year, and then some. Maybe this is some sort of descending triangle that breaks down. Maybe it's a triple bottom like Sol.AVAX, and maybe it breaks above the cloud, right? At 80 to 85, things get interesting. On the BTC pair, pretty depressing. So definitely have to pick your battles here and how long you're in this trade, because the opportunity cost historically in some of these is very large if you're not just trading BTC vanilla or accumulating, stacking sats. Curve, again, looks similar. Sol.AVAX. Comp, which I'll show in a second. Interesting above $1, not so interesting here. BTC pair looks ready for more lows, I've got to be honest. There's a TKC clamp here, but doesn't look too happy. Then lastly on Comp, really it's already had its breakout where you'd expect it at the neckline. This does have a decent shot for higher. I did notice a Comp USD diamond top. Again, just file that away in your memory bank for chart patterns. But this to me looks okay as a buy and hold. It's way below its previous lows, consolidated for a year. On the BTC pair, it looks kind of better than most, not amazing. And it already had some volume come back on Binance. So broadly, unsurprisingly, alts don't look great across the board. I would definitely pick your battles here. Be careful catching knives. That's all for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.